Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news, and I tell you what, screw the transfer news, screw the spin, screw the positivity. I think if you were like me this morning, I'm waking up and I'm like, I just do not understand. I've got bloody hair in my mouth there. I do not understand why Manchester United are in this position, I suppose. And I think a post-mortem is the word I've not heard in relation to Manchester United that is absolutely essential. There is no doubt in my mind, and we'll go through some of the reasons now, why it's not just the players, it's the board, it's the coaching, it's the media, it's the ex-players. They've all contributed to this in their own little ways, big ways, whatever you want to call it. But as I was lying there this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, not being able to go to sleep, I thought, I wonder how many Manchester United players on hundreds of £1,000s a week are awake at 6 o'clock this morning, you know, despairing at the situation of this football club. And that, for me, is where this football club has gone wrong. I think yesterday there will be players who were injured on the bench, who didn't play, who've had a lot of shit this season, who will actually have a smile on their face. They'll actually be happy with, I told you so, it's not my fault. Because that's the mentality that runs through that football club. It is selfish from top to bottom. It is self-preserving from top to bottom. I'm not going to shout and rage about that performance yesterday because I'm not shocked by it. But it's not acceptable. 4-0 to Brighton is never acceptable, and it's not the first time it's happened this season. There must be a post-mortem at Manchester United. There has to be, because when I look at United and I look at what's going on, there are many things that we've all got ideas about how we fix, but it's not about what's going to happen. Is Erik ten Hag's going to solve all the problems? And it's not. If you look at United like a big pile of shit, it's not one person who's shit on it. It's probably 30. It's a big pile of crap, but there's 30 different brands of crap in there. And you've got to analyse that crap and realise whose crap is in there and get rid of it. It's a massive job, and it must be done from top to bottom. But we'll roll Erik ten Hag in. Oh, he's done a great job at Ajax, and there'll be this expectation that everything's going to get better. You don't get smashed by Watford and Leicester and Brighton and dominated in your midfield, players downing tools, players causing issues. That doesn't happen if a manager's going to come in and just change it in one summer. These problems are absolutely huge, and a post-mortem must be done. And I've not heard anybody talk about it, and I think the reason we don't hear about it is because it doesn't actually, in football, everybody's scratching each other's back. I work in the industry, there's some good people in it, but there's a lot of people who are very selfish, very jealous, and they're scratching each other's back. Whether it's journalists, the football club itself, players, agents, ex-players, it's all about self-preservation, and nobody will really call out the issues unless it serves them well. Like, look at some of our ex-players now. Oh, I've got to go live to talk about that loss last night, like it's the first time we've been stuffed. It's like these ex-players have been in their sock drawer, and behind their pants they found the standards. They've suddenly found the standards of this football club. Oh, it's unacceptable. These players are not playing well. The club's run badly. The football's a joke. The tactics are rubbish. What were you doing 6 months ago when your mate was in charge? Well, he's trying his best. I mean, literally, we sacked Solskjaer in November, and we had players, the club, and ex-players coming out like he'd won us the treble. All the best, he's done a great job for us, we're going to miss your legend and all this shit. And he's absolutely at fault with a lot of other people for where we are right now. Now, I'm going to leave no stone unturned. We're going to do a post-mortem here. Rangnick ain't a coach. I mean, that's very, very clear. He is not a coach. He is a rebuilder of football clubs. He is a strategist. He is a director of football. He is a recruiter. He is somebody that I was happy was coming into the club because I thought he was going to get the freedom to analyse the problems and rebuild the football club over the summer with the new manager. And maybe that will happen. But I go back to why we are in this position. I put a tweet out before. The fact is that Manchester United, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, their net spend was 312 million. 312 million, number one. Nobody spent over 300 million net in Solskjaer's time as Manchester United manager. Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, nowhere anywhere near that. And where are we? He built this team. I mean, if you can call it that, he built this team. This team that we are watching week in, week out, he built it. We conceded 38% of our goals this season. In fact, let me just try and get a bit of information up on the screen for you. We conceded 38% of our goals this season in the 12 games Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was in charge. We will play 38 games. So most of our goals were actually conceded in the time that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was in charge. I think we had 17 points from 12 games under Solskjaer. So even if we'd kept him in charge, 36 games would be 54 points. So we'd have 54 points after 36 games. We've currently got 58 after 37. So Solskjaer would not have been the answer. So keeping Solskjaer would not have been the answer for Manchester United. In fact, very much so. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a huge part of the problem at Manchester United. And I think that where, in my post-mortem, where this all went really, really badly was the fact that when they sacked Solskjaer, which 100% should have happened, it was treated like it was the passing of a king. It was like, oh, Ollie's gone. Oh, you know, ex-players, as I said, current players in the squad tweeted about it. The club, thank you, thank you, thank you. We basically applauded failure. The club have got to take a massive responsibility for this season. I'm sorry. Board members, Glazers, the players have been absolutely dreadful. The players for me are number one. And we'll talk about the players in a minute. But in a post-mortem, you must look everywhere. And we are not going to solve this problem by bringing Erik ten Hag in, letting 5 players go who want to leave, a couple of others who want to leave, and keeping the shit that want to stay, who are fundamentally part of why we've been bad on the pitch. There are people like Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Marcus Rashford, and there's more and more and more. They're going to be here next season, and they've not had good seasons. Luke Shaw's not had a good season either, let's be honest. Fred's been up and down. Lindelof, Varane. There's loads of players who've not had very good seasons and they're not going anywhere. So let's not pretend that Ten Hag's coming in and everything's going to get better next year. We're going to be stuck with a lot of players who aren't good enough and have proven they're not good enough. So you have to look at a post-mortem. This club's solution is to bring a manager in and everything's going to be okay. Put a few transfer stories out there and everything's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. It can't be okay with a new manager and a few transfer stories when you're getting smacked up by Brighton and Watford and every midfield is dominating you every game week. It's not going to change massively in one summer because we've got a new manager. Wake up and smell the coffee this morning. Wake up and smell the problems at Manchester United. They are trying to spin it again. Oh, a new manager and a bit of money and everything will be all right. It's the 3-year cycle again. New manager, bit of a bounce. Second year, stabilises. Third year goes wrong, sack. Bring a new manager in. Make money. They have to post-mortem this season. They have to go back to why this season went wrong. First things first, Solskjaer kept a load of players who were toxic. They became toxic because they were lied to. Lingard, Henderson, Van der Beek, Bailly, Martial. There are others. They were lied to. I want to play first team football. You're part of my first team plans. They're not part of the first team plans. They become disgruntled. Toxicity builds in the squad. Ronaldo comes in. The greatest player in the team. The greatest player probably in the league, arguably. Should have been given the captaincy. Wasn't given the captaincy. Rubs up against the person who has got the captaincy. Cliques do happen. It's not the captain's fault. It's not Ronaldo's fault. It's the lack of leadership in the dressing room. I want this to happen. I'm in charge. Problems in the dressing room allowed to fester because there's no lack of leadership. What happens next? We don't buy a midfielder. The midfield is trash. We don't buy a midfielder. We try to go into one of the most competitive leagues in the world without a midfield and we get smacked up week in, week out. In November, Solskjaer quite rightly gets sacked for ultimate failure. He'd been figured out with his counter-attacking football. He was playing in front of crowds now and basically he wasn't a very good coach. He gets sacked and the club, in their ultimate wisdom, decides that they are going to treat it like it was a success. Like the last 3 years have been a success. We're sad to see him go. The structure he's put in place. Oh, he's a legend. Certain players come out. Gonna miss you, boss. You're a legend. Ex-players, he's been treated badly. This, that and the other. And basically, Rangnick walks into a situation where he's not the boss. He can't buy any players. He's got no authority. He's got no coaches. And basically, he's an imposter because the club is still crying about sacking Solskjaer. The players loved it under Solskjaer because he basically probably brought a goodie bag of sweets in for them every day and, basically picked his favourites. And the toxicity level goes from 6 to 10 overnight because United basically throw Rangnick under the bus, throw the fan base under the bus, throw the whole club under the bus and write the season off in November. How on earth can a manager, any manager, come into a situation where we are dreadful? Remember, under Solskjaer, we conceded 38% of the goals we've conceded this season in the first 12 games of the season. We were shite. Absolutely shite. What do Man United decide to do in November? We'll bring an interim manager in with no power, with no coaches, with no signings in January, into a toxic situation where players are not going to be happy that they're suddenly going to have to work harder because Ollie gave them a free ride, and will make top 4. I mean, it was a disaster waiting to happen when you look at it. And on top of that, the fans are sold it that Rangnick's going to have power. He's going to have power. He's going to come into that club. He will be able to buy players. He will be able to assess this team over the next 6 months and decide the future for the next 3 or 4 years, which is a load of bollocks as well. So the club have massively contributed to this. We've said it so many times. They wrote the season off in November, but they wrote Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's career off like he was some sort of genius. And it contributed to it. It contributed to it because the players and the club almost went, oh, we miss Ollie. He was so good. And Rangnick came in as the stranger that was replacing nice Ollie. And basically the players went, screw that, I don't like that. I like Ollie, I want Ollie. And they downed tools. I'm telling you, you've seen it week in, week out. You saw it last night, you've seen it 2 weeks ago, you've seen it all season. These players have downed tools. There will be players in that squad who didn't play yesterday, who were on the bench yesterday, who weren't on the pitch when it was for the goals, who'll be sat there at home on the bench going, it's not my fault. Because this is a big problem as well. Everybody wants to find the problem. I wake up this morning and Rangnick's the problem. Varane's the problem. Ronaldo's probably the problem again. Bruno's the problem. Maguire's not the problem. Rashford's not the problem. He didn't play. Ollie's not the problem. He got sacked ages ago. And actually, the problem is impossible to highlight because it's everybody's problem. Maguire's been shit this season. Rashford's been shit this season, but he didn't play yesterday and we lost 4-0. This is why the problem is huge and a post-mortem is required, because the volume of problem is huge. Like, Maguire didn't play yesterday. Wan-Bissaka didn't play yesterday. Fred wasn't on in the first half yesterday. Rashford didn't play yesterday. Luke Shaw didn't play yesterday. And still we got smacked up. The reason for this is because the problem is not 1 or 2, 3 players. It is throughout the club. The club is infected with selfishness. The board is selfish. They're trying to deflect the blame. Ultimately, I think the blame goes back to November. Players are selfish. They're trying to just deflect the blame. They'll be waking up this morning with a smile on their face going, haha, I thought I was the problem. And that's a problem in itself. If you're a United player who didn't play yesterday, who's had criticism, and you're waking up this morning going, ha ha ha, the fans and the media look stupid now. I thought I was the problem. Hold on, did you play against Leicester? Yes, you were shit. Did you play against Watford? Yes, you were shit. Just because you missed one game where we got smashed doesn't mean you're not part of the problem this year. But that's the mentality in United. I can tell you this absolutely factually. I know it firsthand. They are blame shifters. There will be players yesterday who didn't play who'll be going, well, I can't be the problem because I didn't play. But that's not just one result. We haven't won every other game and then lost to Brighton. You've contributed in different ways to the big pie, the big post-mortem. The whole season's been crap and so many people have contributed to it with their selfishness. And I think that ultimately, going back to what I said before, I'm going to go through your live chats in a minute and your super chats, so don't worry, there's a lot coming in and I will go through them all. I'm going to read them all. But I just want to get these points out because I think it's really important. When you look at it, there'll be people saying, well, you can't blame the media. You can't blame ex-players. You can't blame such and such within the club. But you can, because the volume of problem at Manchester United, and I mentioned the word volume because there's so much of it, is that we've been beaten. Well, what does it say on the screen? We've conceded 4 goals in games 6 times this season. Like, it's happened 6 times. And not their thrashings, but we've been shit all season. The problem is huge. Absolutely huge. And Ten Hag can't solve this problem with 5 signings and 5 sales. It's from top to bottom. United need some honesty. And when I look at the players are the easiest people to blame because they go out on the pitch and they are fundamentally, that squad has to take responsibility. They are the people who wear the shirt. I watched Liverpool yesterday and they drew against Spurs. I've seen Liverpool play quite a lot recently. Every 3 or 4 days, they are relentless in intensity and energy, but talent and coordination as well. They know how to work as a team. They know how to keep a high line. They know how to press and basically suffocate teams, and it's relentless. And I watched United against Brighton, then I watched Liverpool against Spurs, and Brighton, Spurs and Liverpool in very different ways were just totally different to us. Way better than us. All three of them would beat us and beat us well. Very, very well. So that has to reflect on the players. But the bigger picture is this football club, this board, communications, whatever you want to say, they are trying to spin a season that's been the worst we've ever had in Premier League history. They're trying to just make out that it's not bad. It's been a bad one, but next season will be better. They are completely sweeping under the carpet the enormity of the issues at Manchester United. These are enormous issues of which they've contributed to. And I go back to that big pile of shit that United are. It's not one person's shit. It's about 20 different people. And in a post-mortem, you need to dissect that shit and identify who's done the shit. And get rid of all of that. All of it. I look at that game yesterday and, you know, I know Matic and Mata and Pogba and Cavani and Lingard are going to go and Bay's going to go and Jones is going to go. But for me, Delo has got to go. Wan-Bissaka has got to go. Tellez has got to go. McTominay has got to go. One of Maguire and Lindelof have got to go. These are the decisions that need to be made when you've had a season like that. And people will be going, oh, you know what, Goldbridge, you're going overboard there. You can't do that. But you can do that. This is the worst season we've ever had. Ever had. And therefore, you've got to analyse it and you've got to make big decisions. You've got to look at yourself. And United have been so bad at that. So bad at that. So where does the media and ex-players come into this? So the media are fed by players. They're fed by the club. It's not proper journalism. It's not proper journalism. They've all got their own agendas. Now, as the people who only really care about United are you, the fans. You're the ones who on this Sunday morning are pissed off and fed up, and it hurts because you care. The media, very few of them are United fans. Most of them have agendas. Most of them have relationships with certain players or agents or club members, and they are basically just mini branches of the spin that United and the players put out. They can't be trusted, and they will throw out stupid little stats and stupid little stories to push an agenda. And I've seen it, you know, recently. Solskjaer's a prime example. Some people think we'd be in a better position without Solskjaer. Well, 17 points after 12 games, do the math. 3 times 12 is 36. 3 times 17 is 54. We've got 58 after 37. Even if he won his 37th game, he'd only have 57 points. 38% of the goals were conceded in the first 12 games under Solskjaer, and his net spend is the biggest out of any Premier League manager in his time at the club. And he built this team. I don't think Rangnick's a good coach. I don't want him to be the coach. I want him to be the sporting director. But ultimately, Solskjaer built this team. Rangnick's not brought anybody in. Rangnick's dealing with Solskjaer's issues. So Solskjaer it shouldn't even be discussed anymore. I don't think Rangnick versus Solskjaer, you're basically arguing on different shades of shit, aren't you, in relation to results? We need to look forward. But it's not just about the manager. And the media feed this because they feed the story that's the agenda story. And then you get the ex-players who are in the media as well, who I think their contribution is almost laughable at this point. I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 weeks, they finally got on board with where the fans were back in October and November, where the team is crap, the coaching is crap, the club is crap. And as I said, they found their standards in their sock drawer suddenly, because suddenly it's a free hit to say the club's a joke. They'll only do it when it's a free hit, because basically all these ex-players, they're fighting with each other. Whether it's Neville, Ferdinand or whoever, they're all fighting with each other to be the number one fan pundit, basically. I want to be the one that's talking about it. But you've blown it, lads. You've absolutely blown it, because 5 months ago you outed yourselves of what you really are. You don't really care about Man United. The standards only come out when it suits you. Because when Solskjaer was in charge, or it was your lads in the team underperforming, nothing. You only criticised it when it was safe to criticise it. And when you did that, it was tame. You are part of the problem, yet you pretend you're part of the solution. Hullet was on about it yesterday. These ex-players, they'll only come out and say something when it's safe to say it. They're basically just, all they are media personalities fighting with each other to be the number one ex-player pundits. And I'm tired of it. It needs calling out. Get in lane. You're legends as players, but as fans, the man on the street, the woman in the stand, they're far more learned and honest than you lot. You do it for popularity. It's very, very obvious. And you've got the biggest agendas out of anybody. Because if it's an ex-player who's a mate, or it's an player who's a manager, you've outed yourselves. Absolutely outed. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. But look, United are at the bottom of the barrel here. I will always be honest. The Man United fans I speak to are honest. They're fed up with where this club is from top to bottom. They're fed up of it. And if any of those ex-players have got a problem with it, time and time again, you've been asked to have a conversation with me or on this channel. And I don't care whether you do or you don't. But the offer is always there. If you think you've been wronged or you're being spoken about in a wrong way, instead of doing your little tweets to other people to get them to come at me, why don't you just sit down and have a chat myself? I don't bite. All I care about is Manchester United, and I find your opinions hypocritical. So if you're not hypocrites, let's have a chat. I'm sure everybody would love to hear why you're suddenly finding your standards when Rangnick's in charge, but you didn't do it when Ollie was in charge. I just think you're competing with each other. It's about who can be the number one ex-player pundit, and you play for likes. You do. You'll come out and you'll attack a player or you'll attack a manager when it suits you and everybody knows you're going to back it. But you didn't do it when it needed to be done in October because it was your mate in charge. And you've all fed into the problem because now it's suddenly a big issue. United are terrible. We were terrible in October. Most United fans this morning are waking up, not ranting, not raging, just tired and fed up of it. We want a post-mortem. We want a solution. But I'm hearing people coming out with, I can't believe we lost 4-0 to Brighton. I've looked at that defence. I've looked at the midfield. What? The same defence midfield that we've been talking about since October. We're past it, lads. We want a post-mortem. We want to know and demand why this football club wrote the season off in November. Why it brought an interim coach in and gave him no power. Why they sacked a manager who caused all this and pretended it was some sort of genius. They presided over a big, festering, steaming pile of shit this season, and now they're trying to bring Ten Hag in and go, yeah, it's just one bad season. It's just one bad season. And it's not just one bad season. It's a terrible season. It's a disgrace of a season. And any business in any area would look at this season and say, the first, I don't want to talk about Nkunku. I don't want to talk about Tchouameni. I don't want to talk about Neves today. I want to talk about when is the post-mortem on this season, because that is unbelievable. Unbelievable. The money we've spent, the money they earn each week, unbelievable, unacceptable. Any business in any area would be calling a meeting and saying from top to bottom, I want to know how this has happened, how we've ended up in this position. We're going to get the lowest points total we've ever had in Premier League history. The fan base has got no faith in the club or the players. We are absolutely rock bottom. Do not tell me Erik Ten Hag and a few signings is going to turn this around. I want top to bottom, thorough report on what's gone wrong in this football club this season. Are the Glazers going to do that? Not while the dividends are coming in. Is Murta and anyone else going to do that? Not while they're still in a job. This is going to be papering the cracks summer. And Erik Ten Hag is ultimately going to have to work a minor miracle to get this sorted out. And you know it and I know it, because ultimately what they're going to do is they're going to write this season off as a one-off bad season that Erik Ten Hag is going to sort out. And that's what's going to happen. And it's total horseshit. It's absolute nonsense. This football club needs to be, from top to bottom, analysed and looked at in a proper way. And they won't do it. They won't do it. Because ultimately, they'll be scared of what they will find. And what they will find is that the board wrote the season off, and the media and the ex-players and everybody praised Solskjaer like he'd won the bloody treble, and it created a toxic environment where it was almost sad that Solskjaer got the sack. Rangnick was brought in with no power, and players and everything, just toxicity and frustration came out. And it's got to a point now when you've got players who yesterday, who weren't involved, who've massively contributed to this season, are going to be sat there smiling saying, well, I thought I was the problem. You're all the problem, lads. You're all the problem. Nobody has ever said Marcus Rashford's the problem, Ralph Rangnick's the problem, Bruno's the problem. The problem makes it feel like one or two people are at fault. The club's at fault, Woodward's at fault, the media's at fault, ex-players are at fault. But most of all, that playing squad is at fault, and the person who built it is at fault, and he ain't the manager anymore. So look, you've got to look at it in a proper way and analyse it and see where the blame lies. Has your expectation for next year changed? I believe the size of the club is so large, I'm not sure how we can expect Ten Hag to turn it around. Gamer, I'm not going into next season with any expectation. We've been absolutely destroyed week in, week out by most midfields, by most teams. McTominay gives his all, but he ain't good enough. And he's going to be here next year. And Maguire will be here next year. And Lindelof will be here next year. And Bruno will be here next year. And Wan-Bissaka will be here next year. And Shaw will be here next year. You want Eric Ten Hag to bring 5 players in to make us better and also make probably 10 players who aren't good enough this season better next year. I'm sure we'll improve. There will be improvement because you can't repeat that again. But the improvement's going to be slow, I think. Ollie got 3rd place and 2nd and a European final. Let's see if Ten Hag can achieve that. Rash, let's see if... I guarantee you now... Rash is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think, because he talks about Ollie all the time and pays to do it. But ultimately, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is why we're here. I won't hear anything else. He's why we are here. He spent a lot of money. He wasn't a very good coach. He got away with it last season because Chelsea and Liverpool had bad seasons and there was no fans in the ground, so there was no pressure. As soon as they've got fans in the ground and people realised he parks the bus and hits on the brake, he got found out and he got stuffed every week. On Liverpool point, they're not even a super talented team. They have some stars and most average players, but they're an average team. Well, they have got some very good players, but the only thing the board gave Ralph was a whistle, says Bolver. Brian McDonald, players in successful teams buy into a cause and work. Our players have bought into their own fame. We've got a very, very selfish team, mate. Brian, absolutely, you're spot on. We've got a very selfish team. We've got people who get their family members to do what they want, and we've got players who have down tools visibly on the pitch. We've got players on 300 grand a week who didn't play yesterday, 200 grand a week who didn't play yesterday. They are being paid huge amounts of money to wear this Manchester United shirt. Will they have woken up at 6 o'clock this morning like I and many of you have, thinking about the problems at the club? Will they be flawed this morning? No, they'll be there going, I didn't get the blame. I didn't play. I thought I was the problem, because they're selfish fuckers. They're so selfish. We've seen it on the pitch. They are not Manchester United players. They are individuals. They are out for themselves. And you can tell that by how they behave in and around the football club this year, because they're always trying to look out for themselves. Well, it wasn't my fault. I should have played. I didn't play. No. It's toxic. Very, very toxic. Morning, Mark. All these players must get fined all their wages, says Mikael Roach. I think the fact that they beat Brentford 3-0 then lose to Brighton with the same team squad shows all Rangnick isn't much of the problem. The players just choose when they want to show up, says Sam. We deserve this as a club. They were singing Ollie's name in the away end yesterday. What a joke we are. And look, I don't really care if people want to sing Ollie's name or anything like that. He's a legend as a player, but I'd love to sit down with anybody and discuss why he's contributed to this, because the facts back me up. And ultimately, this is Ollie's team. Rangnick's not been able to buy anybody. He's not been able to buy one player. Can you wish my wife happy 50th birthday? She only watches the Co's because she fancies you, says Rob. Well, happy birthday to your wife. She's got good taste. Ten Hag saw that yesterday and rubbed his hands together, knowing the overhaul needed for old and new players. He can do this post-mortem with time. Yeah, but the post-mortem can't be just the playing squad, Chad. It's got to be the whole club. And that won't happen. The Glazers have made massive mistakes. They wrote the season off in November. What big football club in November sacks a manager and brings an interim and gives him no power? That's a statement in itself. Man United sacked a manager, well done, acted like they'd sacked a legend, you hadn't, and then brought in a manager with no coaches and no power and no transfers, and they wonder why we're in this position now. It was inevitable. Absolutely inevitable. Look, if Lewis Hamilton is driving the Mercedes and it's bouncing all around the track and he's trying to catch up with Verstappen and Leclerc and the car's shit and it's underperforming and Lewis Hamilton gets out the car and says, I can't drive that car, and then bloody Piers Morgan gets in and as a go and, you know, it gets worse. That's basically what's happened at United. We had the Mercedes car that was apparently going to race for the title. We had the manager that was apparently great. He did absolutely crap. He gets out the car. We put someone else in the car and we wonder why that person who's not used to the car, in a shit car, still underperforms. It's almost like people thought Rangnick, with no power and no coaches and no really experience of this squad, was going to get a tune out of it. Nobody would. I heard somebody yesterday saying, well, put Goldbridge in charge of the team for the last game of the season, or put themselves in charge. Put Pep in charge. It won't. I wouldn't want to be in charge of that team for the last game of the season. It's very, very obvious. No matter what you or I said to them in the dressing room or what we said on the training ground, they wouldn't react. They've down tools. They're selfish. They don't respect people apart from themselves. So I wouldn't want to manage that team. Not in a million years. Not in a million years would I want to manage that team in the last game against Palace, because they are beyond repair. No coach is going to turn that around. They're a joke. They're an absolute disgrace. The fact now people are giving Ollie the credit because he had to work with these players. He bought them, says Arjun. These players want holiday now. No, this season was all about leaks, journalists. Aidan G, I agree. Manchester United agree. I had so much hope after last week that our mentality was on the up, says Aidan G. Look, I really do think it won't happen, but ultimately a post-mortem needs to happen. And a post-mortem needs to happen in relation to us as fans as well. But I can't be doing with the hypocrisy. I can't be doing with the agenda. I think our content and our community has been accused of many things, but honesty is the thing that you will get in relation to this team. I think everybody's got to take a look at themselves from top to bottom. And I would demand, if I was a CEO or I was the owner of that football club, I would demand over the next 2-3 weeks, month, before I spend any money, I would say, I want a report on why this has happened. And don't come to me and say it's because of a few players leaking information. Don't come to me and say it's because we didn't buy a midfielder. I'm already aware of these things. I want to know why we've embarrassed ourselves every week. I want to know why the fans have fell out of love with the players. I want to know why we wrote the season off in November. I want to know why we brought an interim manager in and gave him no power. I want to know why we kept a load of players that we didn't use that have become toxic. I want to know everything about why this has happened, because it's very, very clear to me that a new manager and a few signings and a few people who are leaving anyway is not going to change this problem. We are going to go into next season, and if we pick McTominay as a CDM, we are going to see our midfield get dominated again. If we pick Maguire with Lindelof, we are going to see problems again. If we pick Maguire with Varane or Lindelof with Varane, we're going to see problems again. We're going to see problems with Bruno again. I want to know where it's all gone wrong. I want these players to come out and tell us. I need to know. I need to know. And will we get that post-mortem? Will we get that post-mortem? And also, I think the media and these ex-players need to look at themselves and go, I need to be a little bit more honest. I need to stop playing games for likes. I need to stop playing agendas. Because it's been a disgrace, an absolute disgrace this season. And I think there's too many hypocrites around Manchester United. Too many self-serving hypocrites around Manchester United. And not many people come out of this season with any credit apart from the fans. But the fans are gutted more than anybody. The fans have suffered more than anybody, and the fans care more than anybody. But they're the only people who've come out of this season with any credibility, because they love the club and they want it to do well. And it's unconditional love. Like, we want the club to do well. Everybody else is either being paid or looking out for themselves, and it's a disgrace. Thanks everyone for watching anyway. We've got the 8 o'clock show for you tonight. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Lots to discuss, but I'm not interested in transfer news this morning. I'm really not. If you care about the football club, make sure you smash a like and get your comments in below on the post-mortem. I don't want to listen to there's more than, Maguire's the problem, Rashford's the problem, Bruno's the problem. It goes beyond. I'm not saying they're not part of the problem, but look at the season, dissect it, look at the hypocrisy, look at the bullshit, look at the protection Solskjaer got from the media, look at the way the club handled it. Look how we didn't get a midfielder. Look how we kept players who were never going to play who've become toxic. Look at the favouritism in the selections of the team over the season as well. Look at the leaks. Look at the results. It's just there's so many strands. Look at the January transfer window. It's just a disgrace from top to bottom, and it really needs some honesty. I don't think that football club has anywhere near enough people about it who are solely obsessed on that football club and feel the pain of this season. I don't think there's hardly anyone in that club who has that. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back at 8 o'clock. Take care. Have a good day. And let's hope we finally get some honesty at Man United, although I've